Let's speak now to Dr. Rob Davidson. He's an ER doctor who serves as executive director on the Committee to Protect Medicare. Doctor, great to have you on this morning. You're, in fact, more pessimistic about the overall estimated death toll than that White House model. You tweeted, "It's impossible that we're less than 100,000 deaths by the end of May. Depending on what we do next, I find it hard to believe that we're less than 200,000 by the end of July." Of course, that White House model now has it up to about 137,000. And I know these are models and they're based on incomplete data. But why do you see a much more marked increase in the death toll going forward?
Well, I think the models actually do show about 100,000 by next Friday. So to me, it is impossible that over the next 2 months, June and July, 60 days plus, that we have, less than, say, 1,500 or so new deaths a day on average. I think some models have suggested up to 2,000 new deaths a day. And we just know that we are not doing enough testing in almost every state. Certainly, President Trump has suggested that he doesn't think testing is that important. However, now that the White House is a hotspot for coronavirus, they are increasing their testing. So these mixed messages and the lack of adequate testing, I think, along with reopening and people getting together more, I think projects a pretty grim outlook over the summer.
Okay, let me ask you this. Initially, the reason for the shutdowns, the stay-at-home orders, was to flatten the curve. In other words, lessen the rate of infection, but not eliminate it. In other words, not keep everybody from getting infected. I just wonder, what is the intention now of stay-at-home orders? I mean, has that become the new goal, to reduce the overall infection rate around the country?
Well, flattening the curve does presuppose you've decreased the infection rate. That R0 number that says, how many people one infected person may infect. Once you get that below 1, that's how you flatten. But really, flattening the curve buys us time, and it should have bought us time to really ramp up our testing regimen in this country. Unfortunately, the president has refused to use the Defense Production Act to help us do that. So that's what flattening the curve should have done. That's what staying at home should continue to do if we can get the administration on board.
But if you don't get the administration on board, right, because the president has said, as you note, that testing to some degree is overrated, or broad-based testing overrated, even as it takes place to a great degree inside the White House. Without that testing, are you saying the country will in effect have to stay largely closed until there's a vaccine?
Well, if we in fact want to minimize the number of deaths and actually increase our likelihood of having an economic recovery that's lasting, that's what we would have to do. I think it's obvious that that isn't what's going to happen in most places, largely from mixed messages from the White House and states not going through the White House phases of reopening. And so we're just going to have to accept that there will be more deaths and we will not have a lasting economic recovery. I think the worst of both worlds is what we're looking at over the next at least 3 months or so.
Explain that argument if you can, because it is often presented as a choice between A or B, right? That you keep down infections, but you have no economic growth, or you allow economic growth, to proceed, the economy to reopen. But you're saying, in effect, that's a false choice.
It is absolutely a false choice. I think we look at least, I think 80% or so of people are concerned that we're opening too quickly. I'm not going to be going out to restaurants. I go to stores now. I go to a grocery store, and if I walk up to the door and see that the people at the desks aren't wearing masks, or a significant number of patrons aren't wearing masks, I turn around and I go to a different one. And these are the decisions that real people make every day. Economic activity doesn't just happen magically because we say it should. And I think as we see the death tolls going up, as we see the numbers going up, that concern by consumers is just going to increase. And again, no economic recovery will be possible.
Oddly, is what we're seeing take place in the White House right now something of a panic to contact trace the vice president's spokeswoman who has been infected, test other people, wear masks, all this kind of stuff with uniformity? I mean, is that what should be happening on a larger scale in the country? In other words, someone's infected, contact trace, see who else they had contact with so you can figure out who else might be infected, et cetera, test, wear masks, et cetera.
Absolutely. Every person who is infected, who is testing positive, should be isolating, so not in contact with any other person. And in fact, Ms. Miller has the resources to do that. I think the rest of our country, many people don't. So we need to get them the resources so they can do that. And then anyone with whom they're in contact should be doing quarantine. So they should be staying out of the public life unless they have a critical infrastructure job. I would argue that Vice President Pence, perhaps President Trump, should be in quarantine, and they can still do their job via a teleconference, getting a message out to the country that they want to get out, hopefully the right message, but whatever message they choose. And I don't see that happening uniformly in the White House right now.
Well, it's notable there that the folks who are in self-quarantine are the doctors, right? Or at least three of the doctors are the ones, although the Surgeon General has chosen not to. Rob Davidson, thanks so much. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you.